Hello potential speaker buyers. I'm here to give you my experience with owning a pair of Magnepan MMGs. The reason for this video is because there's a lot of reviews for Magnepans, but it's usually the higher end, more expensive models than the MMGs, and they're usually written by reviewers or on video by reviewers who don't own them, didn't pay for them, aren't keeping them for an extended period of time. They get them for a while, send them back. Perhaps their viewpoints will be less biased than mine, but I think if you're thinking about investing in these, I know when I was you, I would have appreciated an ownership experience viewpoint anyway. So again, there's a lot of videos on YouTube about MMGs, but it's really just videos of people playing music through them, not telling you about owning them. And there's a lot of reviews out there, written word reviews, magazine reviews, but a lot of them are dated, and they all say things like champagne taste on a beer budget and stuff like that. But I think there's more to them than that. I think getting there is more involved than on the surface it would seem. Just as a background, before this I had a set of Bowers & Wilkins that I'd loved for years, and I listened to my buddy's system a lot, which is Wharfdale based with Outlaw Audio and VPI turntables. I was a Rotel B&W combo lover. I still think there's a lot of synergy there. And by the way, if I cover some audio topics that you disagree with, I'm sorry. Audiophile stuff is a black art. There's a lot of schools of thought. If you disagree with me, that's fine. More power to you. If you agree with me, great. If I helped you in some way, awesome. So, yeah. Why did I change from the Bowers & Wilkins combo with Rotel? I wanted to see what else was out there. I love the sound, and I had them for at least 7 years, and I was ready to switch it up a little bit. I love music, but I also love audio stuff, and I wanted to see what else was going on. I wanted to make a change in my system. And I'm not like some super high-end audiophile guy. I have a lot of experience with sound systems, but I've never invested more than what a car would cost in stereo equipment. Well, I guess that's relative, but you know, I'm not a rich guy or by any means. I would never spend $100,000 on a pair of speakers, so I'm not coming at it from that angle. I'm coming at it from the average Joe who cares about sound and starts reading up on forums and reviews as to speakers in the $500 to $1,000 range. And you're not going to get very far down that path without hearing about these speakers, which is what blew my mind as to why there's not already someone like me who owns them on YouTube talking about them. So anyway, had the Bowers & Wilkins speakers, loved them, like my buddies Wharfdales, wanted something different since we listened to each other's systems a lot. Started reading about these, and I was intrigued, to say the least. I like the idea of having the magnetic planar technology. I like the idea of accuracy and vocal ranges, and that's really my thing. My favorite kind of music really at this point today anyway is female vocals. I love them, and I listen mostly to jazz, female vocalists of all kinds, some electronic stuff, weird, lots of weird music, some ambient, yeah, and of course rock and blues. But anyway, sorry, this isn't scripted, and I haven't often written or videoed reviews on things, so this is somewhat new to me, but I felt it needed to be done. Anyway, so when I was a Bowers Wilkins Rotel guy, I went by the school of thought from an acoustician named Ethan Weiner. Great guy. He's very knowledgeable on the subject, and he makes acoustic panels. You can see his videos on YouTube. He's got a ton of them. He's got a great site. That's awesome. I DIY'd my own acoustic panels for this listening space. But when I had my original setup before, I did what was essentially kind of an equilateral triangle in 2/3 of the room. So I came into 1/3 of the room from the front, 1/3 from the back, and made a triangle from my speakers to my listening position, and it sounded good. Not awesome. It felt almost like a near field experience, I thought. Similar to headphones, but with obviously more ambience to it. And yeah, so it was good. Then I got a hold of a book from Jim Smith called Get Better Sound. I was looking to experiment. So I started moving my seats back and forth, and I ended up veering away from the Ethan Weiner mindset with the Bowers and Wilkins when I went to the Magnepans. To me, they sounded much better having them further out into the room and sitting further away from them. So if you're an Ethan Weiner kind of equilateral triangles, the best speaker setup, in my house, in my experience, they sounded better much further away. So if you're thinking about getting these, have that in mind. You might encounter the same experience sitting further away from them. What was better about it? It sounded more real. It sounded more real. And I liked, they have this sound where, since they don't radiate much upward, it's weird. I feel like I'm sitting in a tornado of sound when I'm listening to the Magnepans. It's just like I'm enveloped in it, almost like a surround sound system, but not. I didn't get that feeling with Bowers and Wilkins. But sitting further away from that tornado, that wall of sound, because they're tall speakers, like the radiating material is tall, so everything they play sounds tall. And sitting further away from that just sounded more real to me. Also, female vocals bested anything I'd ever heard before. So that's part of the reason I like their sound. They're just very accurate and quick. But that was an ownership experience, I feel. I had to rearrange my room. Also had to rearrange my equipment to power them. They do need power, and they need an amp that's comfortable with a 4 ohm load. I threw an amp at them that wasn't comfortable with a 4 ohm load, and the amp didn't overheat. It was hot, but it didn't like go into protection mode, didn't shut itself off, but it ran out of steam really quick. And it wasn't a super powerful amp, but it had good reviews. It was a good amp on normal speakers. On these, it couldn't do anything. But you also don't have to spend $4 million to power them. That's contrary to popular belief. I found a used Rotel 1080 2-channel amp on Craigslist for around $250, $300, and that powers these fine. They get more loud than I'll ever use them. And I have a passive preamp, so it doesn't affect, with a passive preamp, you're getting just what's coming off that needle, because I'm a vinyl guy. And they sound plenty loud with a Rotel 1080. Now, you could run Krell monoblocks at 1,000 watts a piece, and they probably like it even better. I don't really feel a need to upgrade. If I needed to do it over again, or I couldn't find a good deal on a 4 ohm stable amp, with at least 100 and something watts per channel, I would probably look into doing a Class D live sound amplifier like the Crown, those little Crown amps. They're maybe $300 a piece and kick out tons of watts. They're Class D, but they're powerful. Other thoughts on ownership? Tweeters on the inside, for sure. On the outside, to me, they sounded horrible. In the manual for Magnepan, they say you might like it either way. Well, that's true. It sounded terrible on the outside. Another thing I will say, if you're all about closing your eyes and having the holographic image, like in your mind, soundstage imaging, where you can pinpoint that is where the snare is, that guy right there is the bass player. It's more diffuse than that, in my opinion. I think the Bowers and Wilkins and the Rotels and probably most other speakers, some Vienna acoustics I've listened to recently, most other speakers probably image more defined. However, if it's an acoustic instrument of any kind, this sounds more real. I know that might be hard to understand, but part of reading Jim Smith's book, which I really like the book. I recommend it. I'm not like a cult follower of his now, but something he did kind of drive home is to spend more time when you're listening. Not, well, he didn't tell you to do this, but he made you ask the question: are what you listening to are little cues that are telling you, okay, that's where this is, this is what I'm looking for? Or are you listening to derive an emotional reaction from the music? And that made me stop and think, because to be honest, at first I didn't like them. There, I said it. At first I was like, oof, these might be going back. But then I swapped up the seating arrangements. Obviously they're not going anywhere now, because I'm in love with them now. But it took time. It took burn-in. Oh, another thing about that. At first, they sounded extremely bright. And so I have a Project Debut Carbon turntable. I was running an Orifon 2M Red. I swapped that up with the cheap trick on the Shure combos, where it ends up being about $50 for a separate needle and a different cartridge. And it toned that down a little bit. But stock out of the box, the Orifon 2M Red on these was too harsh. But they were also brand new. So I kind of changed two things at the same time. Take that with a grain of salt. But I did experiment with the little resistors. It comes with resistors, and you can go on Parts Express and order some higher end resistors. And like one's like a 1 ohm resistor, and the next step up's like a 4 ohm. I went in between them and tried that. Any resistor that you put on the tweeter kind of cut this too much of the sparkly high end out, and I like some sparkly high end. I apologize, this video is nothing but rambling. I probably should have thought about this more before I pressed record. So I built the stands to stand them upright, facing right at you. I liked it for about a week, and then no, I didn't like it. It got old fast. So save your money there. I did it from Lowe's. I got some big L brackets and some 2x2, cut it and made 4 brackets to stand them upright. Like I said, it was great for about a week, and then I started comparing it to tilting them back. Here's one thing: this room's on carpet. The little flippy stand to stand them upright will sink in your carpet, so you're not going to get the same angle that you would if you were on hardwood, which is why they're on granite slabs now, because I needed something stable other than carpet to put them on, and the granite was in the junkyard at the marble place, so I got it cheap and I thought it looked really cool. That's not an acoustic thing, other than the fact it makes them stand at the appropriate angle for my seating distance, which is about where the camera is. That's not telling you anything. Maybe 10 or 12 feet. Everything in this room is measured to within 1/4 of an inch, so you can't just haphazardly place them. If you're outside the sweet spot on these speakers, they don't have a lot of dispersion. They don't have a wide dispersion, in my experience. Other friends have come in. I'm part of an audiophile club where I live, and they've come in and they said they sound good off access. I disagree. Maybe I'm just being too picky, but I disagree with the idea that they sound good off axis. So, probably said it like a million times. I apologize. If you got questions, ask me. I just felt like something like this needed to exist on YouTube, because these are the entry-level Magnepans, and no one's got a legit review on YouTube about them. I don't know how legit this is, but I think if you can hear them before you buy them, I highly recommend it. If you can't hear them before you buy them, take a chance. You can return them. They're worth giving a shot, but I would not recommend this to the casual listener. If you don't have a dedicated listening environment where you can put them where they are going to tell you they need to be, don't do it. Don't do it. Also, you're going to need one of these. They say matching them is super difficult. I did not find that to be the case. if you put the frequency cutoff close to where the frequency cutoff on these is, which I believe is 55 hertz, I've got this sitting at about 58 hertz when it comes on, and the volume is just loud enough to fill in that little section of audio that's missing from these. It's easy breezy. This is a PSB sub that, you know, maybe 7 years ago was 500 bucks. You probably pick it up for $100 on eBay now. It's not as, doesn't take, if you were to turn the frequency range of the subwoofer way up and had the volume loud on it, then yeah, you probably would need a servo driven sub or something far more expensive. But I believe this little guy doesn't have to be expensive if you tell it to, the frequency response to cut in when these cut out. Don't try to overlap them. In my experience, it didn't work out well. So yeah, that might be all. Cool. Got questions asked, happy to help. Maybe I'll make another video later. Maybe not. But this needed to exist. So I apologize for it sounding like a crazy person on Adderall. See ya!